Government expenses going up, expectations of salary increases, wage expectations, investor confidence undermined by these strikes and downgrades and so on. That's one side. The other side is if the government were to be, or at least if the minister were to be conservative in his approach, he must expect some strikes. He's caught in a proverbial rock and a hard place.
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of those years that nobody wants to be the Minister of Finance. In terms of my analysis, since 1997, we haven't had this fiscal strait that we are sitting in terms of being really straitjacketed both on the revenue side and on the expenditure side. However, it's absolutely important that we also don't lose sight of a very important element of fiscal management, which is in times of so-called doom and gloom and negative perception, it's the Ministry of Finance that has to come up with two things. One is to reconfigure the policies in order to rebuild confidence, and secondly, refocus the expenditure so that government sector itself does not pull the economy down. Or put it positively, the government has to spend whatever it has at its disposal to stimulate the economy. So I think this is the challenge that the minister is going to have to strike a balance with today.
That's very interesting because, again, the issue is that he needs to be prudent. But what happens then? Does he not risk some social upheavals where you then have strikes and so on, people saying spend? You can't just be employing austerity measures at this time.
That's what austerity measures is the wrong thing at the moment. But at the same time, spending on salaries and on recurrent expenditure and on hiring hotels and so on is also not stimulating the economy. What needs to be done is that the minister has to refocus on those type of capital expenditure that rebuilds the economy, creates the sustainable jobs. For example, if it's been reported that 5 billion has been spent on conferencing and so on and so forth across government, if that 5 billion was used to rebuild the infrastructure of the cities, jobs would be created, but the production capacity of the cities would also improve. The production capacity and the tax generation capacity of the economy would also improve. So I think that's, as Manla mentioned in his clip, it's absolutely critical that the minister now really takes out the big knives, as they say in fiscal terms, cut the unproductive expenditure, refocus it fairly brutally on the productive ones. And this is where political support by the presidents is absolutely critical.
Just picking up on the spending issue again, because some have warned that, in order to encourage investments, government must be careful not to crowd out the much needed private investment.
Yeah, I think crowding out it works both ways. If you don't spend on infrastructure, you actually crowd out because investors cannot come in because there's not enough water, there's enough roads, etc., etc. But at the same time, if you invest and use public resources in areas where the private sector would have invested if the regulation allowed it, then you're crowding them out. That's, again, a balance that the minister has to strike, and to make sure that government expenditure does not go into the areas that the private sector would have invested in any case, in the name of all kinds of ideological things. So that's where the minister is in a tight spot at the moment.